Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
It is the Marco Dre Show, everybody. It is Friday, August 8th. Thank you for being here, as always. The weekend is upon us. Thanks for tuning in today's show to get all the groundbreaking news across our country, around the world, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Please be sure to like, follow, and share the show with others to get this information out. As always, I appreciate you for doing so. Let's get ready for the best hour that radio has to offer, uncensored and ready to go. I want to begin today's show talking about this redistricting situation that's happening in Texas right now. There was no quorum held today as the House Speaker hits fleeing Democrats with their pocketbooks, with their paychecks being now held at the Capitol, and of course, budgets being cut. Now, this special quorum that they're trying to put together, and Texas Governor Greg Abbott has said that he's going to continue to do this. So eventually these people are going to have to come back. But right now they're going to be checked financially. They're not going to be given any type of payment or per diem because, again, they're not there. They fled the state in many cases to prevent this from happening. So as of 1 p.m., today's deadline, which was they were given for this quorum call, came and now went. Texas Speaker of the House, Dustin Burrows, has now announced a series of actions to hit the House Democrats the hardest, where they need their money, their pocketbooks. Now, Speaker Burrows announced 96 members of the Texas House clocked in for this Friday quorum at 1 p.m. The roll call board showed that 95 members were present. One of the other members of the Texas floor did not activate his light. This means 8 Democrats were then present. The House rules require that 100 members to be present to conduct business. So they're trying to stonewall them. They're trying to, in what you would call a filibuster in the Congress. They're trying to prevent this redistricting from happening. Why? Because they know if things get redistricted, and again, the Republican-run House and Senate then redistrict, you lose possibly up to 5 seats, or they're going to make districts now that are more heavily favorable to Republicans. Now, at first when this was happening, I said, listen, you've just done this in 2020. They got reenacted in 2021. It's only been 4 years. Why would they do this? And then I thought to myself, well, think about how many people have left California during COVID. Right, when the whole COVID thing was happening, that's when the censuses were happening. You have a mass exodus of people leaving blue states into red states. So we don't even know who's really left. We don't know if it's all the Republicans, if it's all Democrats. We don't know. But we do know that states like, as I said before, Arizona, Texas primarily, Florida, Tennessee, their populations have been exploding. They're getting larger and larger. So, is it unheard of that they do this? No, not really. I don't think it's a smart thing to do every 2 years out of every 10 years. But again, when you see the shift of population that we had under COVID in 2020, 21, 22, there was a mass exodus of people leaving these large blue states to go to red states. Now, that might even favor Democrats in some regard. But again, the way that gerrymandering works, the Republicans of the House in Texas believe that this will help provide 5 more seats in the very, very narrow, slim majority that the Republicans now have in Washington, D.C. So, of course, it's going to favor the Republicans. As you could imagine, it would be favor Democrats if the Democrats were going to continue to rewrite the seats and redistrict. Now, I told you the other day, we have so many states, right, that are complaining about this. Massachusetts, Connecticut, California. My dumb governor, Gavin Newsom, complaining about this. You have almost 40% of the state votes Republican. I think it's like 38.5% in the last presidential election last year. Over 6 million people voted for Donald Trump. Only 17% of the available seats are Republican in the House. Now you try to make sense of that. And we went down 3 seats, and I have my reasons why I believe that happened. Right? When it takes you a month to count congressional seats, and the notoriously red seats, ones that were held by Michelle Steele in Orange County, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Costa Mesa. I mean, come on, these are red districts. And then they're flipping just at the last minute to go blue. I mean, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, Huntington Beach, of all places, is probably one of the most red cities in the country, let alone just in California. Yet somehow they voted in DUI Dave Min, who's a do-nothing schmuck, by the way. Just thought I'd share that with you. But Gavin Newsom now has vowed that he's going to do this. But the interesting thing about California is, in the state of California, you have a redistricting committee. I believe it's 5 Democrats, 5 independents, and 5 Republicans. All sit on it and they hash out how these districts should look. Now, of course, it favors Democrats. We know this. But here's the other problem in states like mine in California. You haven't had any of the voter rolls wiped out in years. And I mean years. They have not scrubbed these voter rolls in probably decades now. So we don't know who's here, who's not here, what the district even looks like. We have no idea. So the idea that we're going to do that, okay, then the Secretary of the State in California here needs to go out there, and I think her name is Shirley Weber. They need to go out and clean these voter rolls. That's what should be done if they want to do this the right way. Will Gavin Newsom do that? Of course he won't. Of course he won't. Why would he? Why would he? He's not going to do that. Because he knows what he's doing favors Democrats. And God forbid they draw some more red seats in places like L.A. or neighborhoods of L.A. or things of the such. I read for you on Monday, even back in the 1960s, they carved up L.A. perfectly so they can get more seats. Well, they've been doing this for years. They've been doing this for decades. It's nothing unheard of. Like it's just the Republican just came up with this grand idea. And Democrats are shocked that it's happening. They do this every single census, folks. The people in charge try to get the districts they want. And again, you can look at states like Massachusetts, states like Connecticut, that have zero Republican authority or leadership or representatives or whatever you want to call it in the House of Representatives. They're not there. They don't exist. The districts are hashed perfectly so that everyone that wins is a Democrat in these states. And again, so you look at these states like New York, New Jersey, another one, Illinois, another one. Only 3 districts of 17 possible seats in that entire state. And you look at the entire state, county-wise, it's all red almost. You have your outliers in like Chicago and what have you. Yeah, they know exactly what they're doing, folks. They know exactly what they're doing. And that's why you saw J.B. Pritzker, I think he was on with Stephen Colbert. They're laughing about the districts and everything like that. It's stupid. This outcry is ridiculous. But what's important now is that this session be held. So they come up with whatever districts they feel is going to be most effective. Now, some people say that's not right, that shouldn't happen. It's up to the states, folks. That's what the Constitution gives us. And as it's been done for the last, that I know, I mean, it's been done even in California since 1950, for God's sakes. It's going to continue to happen. And there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we can do about it. They're going to make districts that they think it'll benefit them, where they will get the most representation in D.C. That's the way it's going to be. That's the way it's going to be. So Burrows, this Speaker of the House in Texas, stated that the members who were absent without an excuse to break the quorum would no longer receive their paychecks or per diem payments via electronic deposit. Instead, what they've come up with. The members now have to pick up their checks in person at the Capitol in Austin. That has to provide them the opportunity to come back and, of course, reach this quorum. He also announced that the withholding of 30% of the absent members' monthly operating budgets, these fundings will be reserved and made unavailable for expenditure. Furthermore, members must be present in person to make specific requests. These include requests for travel reimbursement, changes to staff salaries, and, of course, approval of newsletters and other things of that nature. Now, what's really interesting about this is that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who I hold in high regard, I think he's a pretty good Attorney General. He's pretty solid, I think. Not perfect, but he's pretty solid. He took additional actions to compel the presence of the jet-setting Democrats who fled to Illinois, my great state of California, and other blue states, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Oh, yeah. Love it. Love to go to that New England block, right? And he said, I took action to domesticate the civil arrest warrants in the state of Illinois, seeking to make them enforceable beyond Texas state lines. I expect suits in other states will be forthcoming. I mean, this is getting so interesting to me. I mean, this is ridiculous. You have your job as a representative. You are elected by the people of your district. Now, the Democrats in the state house are not happy about this. Okay, so what? As if you wouldn't do it to us if you had the chance? Of course they would. They do it all the time. And act like this is something brand new is just, again, completely ridiculous. So now you actually have arrest warrants going out for people that have led to this jurisdiction of their duty. Where is the representation for these people? They still have a job to do. They still might even have a say in this. Now, again, the Republicans in the end are going to come out with the final say. But at least their voices will be heard. At least Greg Abbott will hear what they have to say before, again, providing him with the redistricting maps. So, again, it's just stupid. You're going to California, to Illinois to talk about redistricting and gerrymandering? What the? I mean, come on. They're the poster childs for this nonsense. Go look at California. Yeah, go look at it. Again, states, no photo ID when you vote in the elections either. Makes me wonder. Always makes me wonder. So, again, it's so stupid to me that they're throwing these outrageous claims again. Now they have Gavin Newsom trying to come out and, talk about he's going to now counter what Texas is doing by giving 5 more seats in California. How many more seats you going to rob of the Republicans, you schmuck, you? Meanwhile, there's a forest fire blazing in Ventura County near Santa Barbara. And what's he done with that? Nothing. Gavin Newsom doesn't give a damn about the people of California. He never has. But now he's talking about new maps in California. Well, you already have a commission that's supposed to make it as even as possible, even though I highly doubt it is. But that's what they've given per law to do. That way it's somehow considered even in the state of California. Well, that's not good enough for Gavin Newsom. No. Mr. 2028 presidential candidate needs to stick his greasy hair right into the mix of all this. It seems unbelievable with this guy. Unbelievable. The state has, forest fires blazing right now. The deficit is $72 billion in the hole, and he's talking about giving us more, the Democrats, more power. Makes you wonder, folks, doesn't it? Who their interests really lie with. Certainly with power and control, I'd have to say. And you can read more about that in Breitbart if you'd like. That's out today. The Wall Street Journal, though, gives us other good insight into why this is happening. Now, Trump encouraged the Texas House Republicans to, again, redistrict. And I say, okay, a state like Texas, maybe that makes sense just in a couple of years because of the mass migration of people fleeing some of these states that have had enough of these blue policies move into these areas now. And now you have a much greater population. Do you have to wait 10 years to 2031 to, again, redistrict these lines? Again, I don't think it's a good thing to do every 2 years. I think it's ridiculous. But when you saw what we saw in 2020, in 2021, 2022 with the whole COVID things in states like California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, all these blue states, Illinois, don't forget Washington, Oregon. When you see what we saw, which is, again, is people getting the hell out of these cities and these blue states, as they ought to, you're seeing, again, another state taking on that population. And hey, maybe, I don't think so, but maybe these people start voting Republican. Maybe some will continue to vote Democrat. I'm sure they will. I'm sure the people showing up with Bernie stickers are still going to vote Democrat. Okay. But at least you have different representation. You're accounting for a different populace. And that's what they should also be doing. But this is interesting. Trump says he now orders census to now exclude immigrants living in the U.S. illegally. That'd be illegal aliens. I don't know why we're calling them immigrants, because immigrants are here of legal status. That's what that means. They've come here legally. They're supposed to be here. And they've gone through all the proper channels. Illegal aliens have not. Now, this is going to hurt states like California, especially if this were to get passed. And this is going to kill California. You're probably going to lose about 7 or 8 seats in the next census, if I have to say so myself. I mean, we already know that 1.2 plus million illegal aliens reside just here in the great city of Los Angeles. That's just LA. That's not even the whole county. So you've got to ask yourself now, these sanctuary cities now, with these sanctuary policies that serve as refugees for these illegal aliens, how are we still going to get this type of representation? Are you going to lose, 1.2 million in just these city districts alone? So now President Trump has now asked the Commerce Department to start working on a census that would exclude illegal aliens. He went on to say on Thursday morning, I've instructed our Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern-day facts and figures. People who are in the country illegally will not be counted in the census. And by the way, President Trump, those people you're not counting, get rid of them. Get them out. Get them out. Trump said he would have to contend with the 2019 Supreme Court decision that halted his first administration's plan to ask U.S. residents on the 2020 census whether they were citizens, saying the reasoning in asking the question appeared to be contrived. Well, again, if the government has information that people residing in a certain location are residents, that obviously puts them at risk for deportation. So that becomes a problem. In the run-up to the 2026 midterm elections, the president has made several moves now to shake confidence in federal data that shows the health of the economy and that is used to form congressional maps. And again, I don't know why they're saying immigrants living in the U.S. illegal aliens. Just call them what they are. That's what they are, based on the law. Layman's terms, illegal aliens. That's what they are. It's not rude to call somebody that. That's what they are. They're illegal aliens. And again, they're included in these calculations to apportion House seats. So think about a sanctuary state like California, or a sanctuary city like LA or San Francisco. You are harboring all these people here of illegal status, and you're not cooperating with ICE. Just go look at New York City, for God's sakes. Now, of that population, we're now creating these districts now. In these heavily neighborhoods, perhaps, that have illegal aliens, you're getting more representation for which party. See how this works? Not only are they getting votes, they're getting more representation out of this as well. So it works both ways. This is why Democrats are miffed about this. So more of these illegals live in Democrat-leading states, according to Pew Research. No kidding. They're the ones who are doing the sanctuary city policies, which are unconstitutional, by the way. The next census is scheduled for 2030, and results would be released in early 2031. That's when Texas would have done this again, redistrict, 2 years after Trump's term ends. The new state populations would be used in a formula fixed in law to reallocate House seats to reflect population shifts among states since 2020. A lot of states are doing this now, though. A lot of states are saying, hey, you know what? Our districts are The state is heavily Republican now. Things have shifted. States like Indiana, Missouri are also looking at ways of just, we need to redistrict now. If Democrats are going to do this in Connecticut and Massachusetts, Illinois, California, New York, and screwing Republicans out of seats, right? They're saying, okay, game on. And the Republicans act outraged. We're losing our democracy. Is with the gargoyle, what's her name? Kathy Hochul? Oh my God. Yeah, that's what they're doing now. They're upset. They're losing power. They're losing their own favorability. I mean, the Democrats have a 33% approval rating among just their own party. I mean, this is not looking good for Democrats. And again, they're talking about fear of losing in the next election round. Well, again, the only way they lose, again, if you deport lots of illegal aliens, detain them and deport them, and if you also go and say, you know what, you've got 5 million people in your state that don't belong here, Gavin Newsom, guess what? You're losing some more congressional seats. And that just topples a whole house of cards. Their power structure, right, the system in place that gives them more power is now gone. And that's why you're seeing Gavin Newsom speak out against what's happening in Texas. That's why you're seeing Kathy Hochul talk about what's happening in Texas. And JB fat-ass Pritzker saying the same damn thing. We're seeing exactly how they maintain power and how they do it. And Donald Trump needs to stop these sanctuary city policies. First of all, it's destroying these cities, number one. It's making them more unsafe. And I'm not saying immigrants that come here legally are included in that class. I'm talking about illegal aliens, folks. That's what I'm talking about. And in these districts where you see more illegal aliens, you see more crime, you see the uptick of crime. It's not getting better. This has got to stop. This has got to stop. And that's why you're seeing, I think, things like in D.C. where Trump is now deploying the National Guard on the streets to restore order, which I don't technically agree with. But we've got a massive crime rate in our nation's capital. D.C. looks terrible. I mean, people going out at night just getting jumped and shot and killed. It's horrible. And where's the leadership? Well, it's Democratic. D.C., since its, inception, has always 100% voted for Democrats. That's just the way it is. That's the way it is. And that it's not going to change on that level. The idea that is, people are going to continue to vote Democratic. You're going to see people like Muriel Bowser in charge. You're going to see a Democratic city council in charge. They're not going to do anything. Police chief, forget it. They're run by the leadership. And they enact the laws that those branches of government put into place. So Trump is saying, you know what? This is our nation's capital, and it's got one of the highest, if not the highest, murder rate, crime rate of all these other, third world nations that have much lower. I think he compared it to like Ethiopia. Ours was 41 murders out of 100,000 people. I think Ethiopia's was like 16 or 17. Still not good, but I mean, it's just comparing. You're talking about third world nation capitals. And here we are, the number one nation, the number one superpower in the world, and we have a out of control crime rate in our nation's capital. I don't like the idea, of course, of the federal government coming in and deploying troops on the ground. But we live in such crazy times, folks. We saw this in California when Donald Trump deployed the National Guard and the Marines in L.A. to create some type of order so that ICE can go in and do their own job because the local government was not complying with federal law. Now, the way that the president can come in and say, I'm putting troops on the ground, they're able to do that in situations of rebellion or insurrection. But we have these mass protests now against ICE doing their job. But you're putting federal agents at risk now. They're creating civil unrest in the streets. And, of course, you have the LAPD that's not going to do anything. They can't. Right? We talked about this before. They're not going to do anything. Because you have a communist mayor like Karen Bassett's not going to do anything. So you as the president have to say, what am I going to do now? In saner times, of course, this would be shut down right away, or there wouldn't even be any type of protests, because saner people would agree that following the law is a good thing. But now you have mayors and governors that simply just don't give a damn. They want the chaos in the streets. It helps their cause. Yeah, they get to call Trump a fascist, a Nazi, Hitler 2.0, all these other stupid names. And I say to myself, where is the law and order? So we're in many unprecedented times, folks. And a lot of what we see right now, we've never seen so many illegal aliens in the nation. I mean, look at this. At the end of the article, it says here, Republican House and Senate members have introduced bills to count only citizens in the calculation of how House seats are allocated. An unprecedented move that would exclude both legal and illegal immigrants. You gotta know why they're excluding legal immigrants. They're here legally. About half of the nation's 48 million immigrants are not citizens, although many have immigrated legally. Well, if they're here legally, that's not a problem. What is a problem are the people that are here illegally, which is really that sum number right there that you see. I think on average we bring in about 1 million legal, obviously, migrants into the country. But again, I said this to you before. I'll say it again. In 2020, they came out with a research paper that said we roughly have about 25 million illegal aliens residing in the country. Right? For years, I kept saying it was 11. They're like, that was a decade ago. Now they have these new numbers, and of course, now they found out that it was 22 to 25 million illegal aliens. A big problem. Then you add in the Biden regime bringing in 16 to 20 million illegals. On his watch, you could go look at that southern border every day. 10,000, 15,000 that we knew of. We don't even know about the gotaways. So we have no idea who's coming into our country, folks. Now, the southern border was a mess. The northern border had some illegal entries as well. I'm not saying one is more important than the other. We should have a secure border. But the southern border was the one that was giving us the most problems. So, folks, let's do the math. Let's not do Obama Common Core math. Let's do real math. If we have 25 million illegals, let's say in 2020, right before Biden took office, there's 25 million illegal aliens residing in the United States. And he brings in another 20. How many illegal aliens are in the country now, folks? We have about 45 million that we know of illegal aliens in this nation. And a nation cannot survive on that at all. Which is why Trump's got to get those deportation numbers up. They're not nearly where they need to be, although they seem to be slightly improving right now in our nation of 35 million legal residents, hopefully. That's what we'll have here eventually. But, I mean, realistically, we would probably have about 300 million legal residents in the nation when you think about it. So if this passes, this will be positive because you're going to see the shift of this democratic power start to change. And I say that's a good thing. Because for too long we have this illegal representation. It's not anything positive, folks. It's not anything positive. All right, I want to move on to this next topic. This is important to me that we discuss. You've probably seen this in the news as of late, but this whole Israel-Gaza conflict, and the whole issue of starvation, of genocide that we continue to hear about. And I did a little bit of information in the past couple of days that I wanted to share with everybody because it's important that we get the real facts out there. What is known, what's being said, versus what's actually happening. We need to know the truth about what's going on around us. And I don't see anyone in any mainstream media talking about this. So I went through several sources of people that, again, have this intelligence or have talked to people on the ground, primary sources. So everything I'm giving you, again, are people that are going in to get the actual details. It's not just hyperbole or opinion or I read this in Time Magazine or the New York Times. This is what people are actually on the ground reporting. Okay, so let's understand that, what I'm about to present to you. So we got to talk about is there evidence of starvation? That's the first thing I start off with. Is there this evidence of starvation? And Max Blumenthal was on with Judge Andrew Napolitano's podcast 2 days ago, I believe, or maybe 3 days ago now. And we have to understand what's going on here. You have Israelis that are attacking humanitarian aid trucks, waiting to enter Gaza before they're even sent in. And yet we're told the entire time, and time again, as Netanyahu has asserted, that it's the UN's fault, calling this intentional starvation on Palestinians a bold-faced lie. That much of the aid is being held by Israelis in certain locations of which they control inside Gaza in various warehouses. So the food that the UN is allocating and trying to distribute to the Palestinians now is being held by the Israelis. So we need to understand that. Now, Max Blumenthal also shared that a representative of the UN, this Philip Lazzarini, shared an image of over 400 community-based aid centers inside Gaza. Now, since the attack on October 7th, which was abhorrent, which, of course, I denounced, Israel has gone in now, though, and attacked these aid sites, leaving only about 3 or 4 remaining. So think about that. We had 400, now we have 4. What changed? Israel has gone in and attacked these aid sites. Now let's understand that Israel has, again, sequestered these Palestinians into about 25% of the overall territory of Gaza. This dream occupation that Netanyahu seeks isn't just a dream. We'll discuss that later, of what he's said as of late. But Israel has now effectively banned UNRWA, which is the UN Relief Work Agency for Palestinian Refugees, via a Knesset vote that's there. That would be like similar to our Congress. There is a vote to ban them. Again, these are the people that are providing aid. And this is what he has to say. Take a listen to this.
Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza. We've enabled the amount required by international law to come in. There are hundreds and hundreds of trucks loaded with tons. So far, we've supplied 1.9 million tons of food since the beginning of the war, almost 2 million tons. And now we have hundreds of trucks that are waiting on the Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom crossing. And it's international organizations, some of them very well intended. And it's the UN too. Food that they purchased. And we said, go ahead, deliver. And they said we can't because combat is going on. And we say, yes, when combat, we'll fight. Where we're fighting, we'll continue to fight. But there are safe corridors. You can bring the food to anywhere you want. That is not a problem.
Okay. That's not a problem, is what he says. Don't worry about it. We're in an active war zone. We're bombing places. So you hear that and you say, oh, no, it's all the UN's fault. They're the ones not bringing the food in. I just told you. These trucks are attacked before they even enter Gaza. A lot of the food they have is being held in warehouses. There was a Knesset vote to ban UNRWA relief from entering, this humanitarian aid from entering Gaza. So you have to ask yourself, okay, how can Bibi Netanyahu suggest this is not intentional then? Everything you just said was a lie. Now, one of these organizations is called the World Food Program, has repeatedly tried to enter Gaza, only to be attacked by the IDF, firing on Palestinians, waiting in line for food. We've heard about that before on this show, and any others that are telling you the truth right now. They're firing at UN workers themselves. But in most cases, these people have to walk a long distance. The Palestinians now have to walk long distances to reach just one of these 3 or 4 aid sites that remain. And the Gaza Humanitarian Fund that is run by CIA ops, of course, Israeli intel, many of them are mercenaries, by the way. They're actually hitting them with tank shells now. I mean, this is getting absurd to hear this. That, there's nothing intentional, no starvation. It's Hamas, it's Hamas, it's Hamas. Look, we could talk about Hamas. All right, I'm not saying we can't. But the idea that there's nothing happening on Israel's side is completely ridiculous. Now, the next statement that has been made, well, again, it's Hamas. It's Hamas stealing the food, right? Israel's getting the food in that we can get in, that the UN apparently is giving us, right? We're telling them to go in, but they're stealing all the food. Is it true or false? Let's attack this one now. An ISIS member, or at least somebody linked to ISIS, Yasser Abu Shabab, that's his real name, also linked with the GHF, this Gaza Humanitarian Fund, run by Israel. This one is run by Israel. This guy also deals drugs into Gaza, but also steals aid from the UN and actually sells it on the black market. Think about our aid that we sent to Ukraine. Think about that. The aid we sent to Ukraine, we find out our 80% of the money's missing, 80% of the weaponry is missing, being sold in the black market. Same concept, folks. The bad people come in, they take what people like we were trying to provide at one point, taking these weapons, selling it. The money, where's the money? Unaccounted for. But we're still paying for it. So the idea that it's only Hamas going in there, when you have other people working in these factions, that's when the aid is brought in, they're taking it, all right, and then they're selling this food on the black market. It's really shocking to hear some of these things. It's sad too. It really is. And you're telling me that the Israeli intel doesn't know about this? Or our CIA ops don't know about this when they're the ones that are working in this group? This GHF? Come on, folks. Now, one final point I want to... I keep hearing this. The young child that they're using, that we see in a lot of the Western media, whose name I've come to find out, thanks to Max Blumenthal, is Mohammed al-Mutawak, who has a muscular degenerative disease. That's true. It's not a lie. That's true. I found out now that this young child is 1.5 years old, whose condition has worsened now due to the lack of milk being provided, can no longer even walk. His mother relies on aid, of course, because again, there are no jobs in Gaza, folks. I mean, you go through, everything's in ruins. Everything is in ruins. So the people that may have, there's no banks, there's nothing. Many of them are in refugee tents, just living on the beach, as this mother and her child are. She can't work. Her husband was killed while trying to obtain food in the ways I've just said to you. Shot while trying to give food. Yeah, there you go. No, nothing's happening, folks. There's no starvation. There's nothing going on there. Turn your head. Look the other way. Come on. Now, to suggest that a child with a muscular disorder is just unable to, I guess, starve, I don't know. This is invalid to me. It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't mean people aren't starving because you have one child that has a muscular disorder. What do you want the child to look like? That's what I want to say. I mean, you're getting the source directly from the child's mother. The child can no longer has any access to milk, can no longer walk. And it's not just this child, it's many others as well, and other people as well. Again, when you look at people in Gaza, do you see a whole bunch of fat people walking around? You don't. If you want to look at the real pictures. Others are going to say, too, things like, oh, look, I'm watching, this person take a picture of people holding pans. See, they're not starving. They're ready to get food. I mean, this is all stupid, folks. It's all stupid. And it just shows you this dire need for intervention on this. The starvation campaign's got to end. Donald Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize. He should actually end this slaughter and the starvation of innocent Palestinians. We're not talking about aiding and abetting Hamas, who should be condemned, of course. who should be the real target of the IDF. But thanks to social media, we know what's happening in Gaza. And again, not just to Hamas, but to the Palestinian people that have nothing to do with this. The other argument, of course, is that every Palestinian is guilty because they voted in Hamas in 2004, 2006, last, several years, decades now. They let Hamas run. They agree with Hamas. So therefore, everyone is able to be slaughtered or starved. Again, they haven't defeated Hamas yet, folks. The IDF has not defeated Hamas. But thanks to social media, we know what's happening in Gaza. Imagine if we just had to rely on the mainstream media. My God, we'd be completely clueless. There's people out there, and I encourage you to look up their information, people that go into these regions that risk their own lives. People like Anthony Aguilar, and often, other journalists that risk their lives go into Gaza to show us everything that's happening, this destruction, this carnage, this starvation, this lack of humanity. President Trump said he's going to leave Gaza to Netanyahu. This has got to stop, folks. There's got to be some type of intervention. This cannot continue to go on. The world is watching this, by the way. I'm still waiting for a Truth Social post on this, intentional burning of the St. George Christian Cemetery in the West Bank. Maybe when Speaker Johnson, leaves the Wailing Wall. I speak in jest, of course. Saying that the Bible now mandates us as Christians to support Israel, undying support of Israel. I don't understand these people, folks. Have they not read the Bible? I don't understand this. Now, Mike Johnson, who has suspended Congress thanks to the Epstein files and the disclosure of that, doesn't even go back to his district. He goes to Israel. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor of Arkansas, goes to Israel. This is him the other day. This is your speaker, Mike Johnson. You'll probably believe this. This is him at the Wailing Wall.
Mike Johnson, the 56th Speaker of the House of Representatives in America. We're here with a delegation of members of the House. We're so grateful to be in Israel, particularly on this day, recognizing the destruction of the two temples and two times in history. But it is such a moving time for us to be here at the Wailing Wall. We've offered our prayers. We put our notes into the wall as just traditional. And we're so moved by the hospitality of the people and the great love of Israel. Our prayer is that America will always stand with Israel, and that we will we pray for the preservation and the peace of Jerusalem.
Okay. All right. Does it say a word about the Christian church? One of the oldest churches, by the way, in the Catholic faith, destroyed by a missile attack. Totally intentional. The IDF said it was a mistake to hit it, of course, killing 3 people inside the church. The intentional setting of fire to this Christian cemetery in the West Bank that Mike Johnson says is, should be Israel's. That's what it should be. Again, kicking more Palestinians off this land. Folks, I don't have any, answer to these people that think like this, or this is their one most important thing to do. Why is this what he's most enthralled with? I don't know what to say about this. I'm so mad about this. He's in Israel praying at the Wailing Wall. I don't understand this. Why don't you walk into LA or New York City or San Francisco or DC and talk about making changes to these cities, making our country a better place, allocating our money? There's none of it. No talk about it whatsoever. Oh, well, we'll get to it when we get to it. We're paying for all this military aid in Israel, folks. The financial aid we give them, they don't have to pay us back. But you, the dumb American, have to pay back your student loan debt. Don't forget that. Otherwise, they'll garnish your wages and bankrupt you at a higher interest rate. Yeah, that'll happen. But, we can send, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, this and that. We can get involved in this war and that war. You know, our founding fathers said it the best. They said, no foreign entanglements. No foreign entanglements. Don't get involved in these foreign entanglements. And you can see exactly why. How much money have we spent on these endless wars? The last 125 years. Since the creation of our Federal Reserve Bank, by the way. Notice we've got ample money that could just be printed out of the air just to go to these wars. And the destruction of our men that have to go fight in these wars. By the way, Netanyahu just fired his attorney general of Israel, looking into his corruption allegations. Think about his, judicial reform that he was getting heat for. And of course, Qatargate. Remember that? He was taking money from Qatar the same time Hamas was. Oh, yeah, you didn't hear about that. No, you never heard about that, did you? I saw on Fox News, Netanyahu says he now wants control of Gaza. And this is, of course, to help Gazans to be free of Hamas. That Israel helped create, by the way. It's a sad thing, folks. It's very sad what's going on in the Middle East. And, of course, we have the IDF that doesn't even want to go in now. Because it'd be like guerrilla warfare. I mean, there's no end to this. There's no end to it. Now, we're told, of course, he wants to go in to save the remaining hostages that are POWs. And he should get the hostages out. He should. They've actually said that we'll allow you to come in and give these hostages food. Netanyahu declines. Because it's not about the hostages anymore. It's about controlling Gaza. I've read to you what their heritage minister said. All of Gaza will be Jewish. You've heard people like Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, saying other things of similar natures. They're saying instead of sending food and water, we should be sending bombs, encouraging migration out of the region. They got a plan, folks. They got a plan, and they're going to take that strip. And Trump is going to sit there and let them. That's what you're seeing right now. One last thing on this whole, Israeli-American relations. This is the New York Times. It says, in a reversal, FEMA will not deny grants to cities that boycott Israeli firms. Can you believe this? I mean, can you actually believe this? This is happening right now in this country. In grant notices posted in recent days, FEMA has said that cities and states needed to follow terms and conditions set forth by the parent agency, that'd be the Department of Homeland Security, right? The same security system that wants you to get a real ID, right? Because they eventually want a national ID. I can only tell you how catastrophic that would be. But the DHS now was prohibiting grants from limiting commercial relations specifically with Israeli companies. So if you were in a state or if you were a government organization that said, we're not going to buy from Israeli companies anymore. We're not going to purchase from them anymore. We're boycotting them. FEMA was going to decline any type of grant notice to you. Any type of aid coming into your city. Now, they took a lot of heat, but on Monday of this week, DHS took down that version of its terms and conditions and replaced it with a new document that does not mention Israeli boycotts. Yep, there's no FEMA requirement tied to Israel. There you go. Can you believe this nonsense? I mean, can you believe how crazy our government is? They would actually put that in the original terms and agreement. They've gone on to say that no states lost funding and no new conditions have been imposed. Had the eligibility criteria stayed in place, it could have restricted access to at least $1.9 billion earmarked for search and rescue equipment, emergency manager salaries, and backup power systems used during blackouts, as reported by Reuters. I mean, folks, have you ever seen of anything so ridiculous in your entire life? You have an American organization paid for by the American people saying, if you boycott Israel, we'll simply take all this funding away from you. Who the hell do these people work for? That's what I want to know. Because it sure as hell isn't you. Sure as hell is not you. My God. Thank God that got taken out. Again, we got to keep our eye on these things. When they come up, there's got to be pushback. People should not be penalized from who they buy from or whom they'd like to buy from. The Justice Department, this is in Washington Examiner. This is a great article. It says that the Justice Department has now subpoenaed New York Attorney General Letitia James as part of an investigation in burgeoning grand jury inquiry into whether her office violated the rights of President Donald Trump during her prosecution of his high-profile civil fraud case, according to multiple reports. This is so stupid because this is when Donald Trump allegedly inflated the value of his assets to secure favorable financial terms. And they actually, the whole thing is stupid. First of all, even if Donald Trump did overvalue his property or his assets or what have you, he still sat down with a bank. They assessed his claim, and they decided whether or not to give him a loan. And a loan of which, as far as I know, he paid back with interest. And the bank said that they would like to do business with him again. Yet, Letitia James comes in again, and they come up with some phony number. And now you had a New York judge ordering to pay $454 million in penalties. A figure now exceeding $500 million with interest. Of course, Trump appealed the ruling on that one. I mean, this is just a cat and mouse game. This is a woman who ran for her position in state office, saying that she was going to go after Donald Trump. This is the exact definition of weaponizing the Justice Department in this country. Trying to punish an elected official because he was going to run for office again. Now what you're seeing is the flip of this. You're seeing people coming out saying now, as it is quoted here, weaponizing the Department of Justice to try to punish an elected official for doing her job. No, that's not her job to go after Donald Trump. No, I'm sorry. That's not her job. To go get Trump, as she claimed. Is an attack on the rule of law and dangerous escalation by this administration. If prosecutors carry out this improper tactic, they are genuinely interested in the truth. We are ready and waiting with facts and the law. First of all, by the way, this Lowell guy is the same one that represented Hunter Biden. There you go. That should tell you the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree here. There was no basis in her going after Donald Trump. Same as Alvin Bragg's for going after him for election fraud or whatever the hell they try to put on him. So here we go. We have a city DA going after someone in, again, he prosecutes state crimes in Manhattan. He's going after Donald Trump for a federal crime, changing misdemeanors to felonies to go after him. 34 counts worth. You don't think that's intentional? You don't think Letitia James helped bring that on? Yet when Donald Trump goes after them now with his DOJ, saying, hey, you broke the law. You weaponized the law, not us. It's, oh, what are you doing? You're weaponizing the Department of Justice now. No, they were fine when No Merrick Garland did it. That was okay. When they raided Mar-a-Lago, that was fine. That was fine. Nothing there. A former president of the United States, his own residence, raided by the FBI. The classified documents case, another thing, ridiculous. You know, Joe Biden, he could steal documents from the SCIF. That was okay. Donald Trump takes his own classified documents. It's awful. Bill Clinton could do the same thing, could do nothing wrong. You never heard of such a thing. It's just one-sided. But in Trump's case, in this case, the DOJ, is actually looking at these Democratic prosecutors that targeted him unfairly, completely unfairly. And notice those charges, those 91 charges, wherever they were, from Fulton County, with Fonnie Willis, or, you know, with Alvin Bragg, or with Jackass Smith, right? They're all gone. They're not pursuing him anymore, right? Right? That was all a smoke and mirrors game. It's unbelievable. And yet this woman calls herself the Attorney General of New York. So they need to look into her. and if these charges carry any water. I don't think they do. I don't think you think so either. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because finally, at least, these people are being held accountable. If anything, at the end of the day, these people need to be held accountable, because they never are. And that's the most important part about this. Speaking of New York, Zohran Mamdani, this is in the New York Post, has now vowed to declare war on charter schools if elected as New York City mayor, which is sparking outrage from parents and advocates alike. I told you this guy was going to be a problem. Nobody seems to listen. They seem to continue to like this guy in New York City. I don't know why. The New York Post, is calling him a socialist. He's a communist, folks. That's what Lenin said. All socialism leads to communism. That's what he is. So Zohran Mamdani, right? Mamdani the commie, plans to declare war on charter schools if he's elected mayor. Now, according to a survey he answered, sparking outrage from both advocates and parents alike who called the frontrunner's views very misguided. Yeah. Now, the 33-year-old Queens Assemblyman said that he would fight efforts to open up more charter schools, which largely educate minority and working class students, and even oppose these schools sharing space in city-owned buildings. So he's going to try to shut them down because he's bought and paid for by the United Federation of Teachers Union, right? They endorsed him over Cuomo, right? So he's in their back pocket. They've got a lot of money. They take those union dues. They give it to him, right? We see this with Democrats all over the nation. I think, 98%, just over 98% of all the donations these unions get for an education, 98% go to Democratic causes or Democratic candidates for office. Now, I know here in California, when Jerry Brown ran his term, he let the California Teachers Association just run his campaign. Put all the money in there that he needs, which is a lot of money to run for governor in the state of California. Yep, just let them run the show. So now we have Mamdani doing the same thing, nonetheless. He's taking their money, which means he's beholden to them, and they don't want charter schools. Why don't they want charter schools? Right? Why don't they want charter schools? Because, again, charter schools have some leeway that they can run their own curriculum. I know, like here in California, and I'm very familiar with the charter school system, they have to go through audits, whereas public schools do not. So there's actually more accountability for opening a charter school than there is a public school. And charter schools, on average, tend to get better results as well, which, again, is a good thing. We want our kids performing better. But the idea now, right? 95% of our children in our charter schools are students of color. He doesn't believe that parents should have a choice of where they send their kids to school. That's what it comes down to. He wants them going to the school that they're assigned to, that may be an unperforming school. I mean, again, Donald Trump ran on school choice. Advocated for charter schools. Advocated to you to go to whatever public school you wanted to go to. That's what he ran on. But again, why do they want these kids now to leave the charter schools and go to the public schools? Well, because, as I said before, think about COVID. Think about the parents seeing what the kids were learning via Zoom or Skype or whatever the hell they were on. Google Classroom, whatever system they were using. You know, the parents are saying, like, why are your teachers talking about this? And why are they saying that? And what's going on here? I never knew this. And there was actually this scrutiny now under what was being taught in public schools. And you saw this exodus, as I said before, during the COVID era into largely red states. So you had a loss of population. I know LAUSD lost, I think, over 100,000 students, I think. They have no idea where the hell they went or where they are now. They have no idea where they are. I could be wrong. I might not have been 100,000. I know it was a very significant number. So what's the answer? How do we keep our schools running now? Because, again, it gets brought in by the attendance, right? So now if you have less population in your school gets less funding by the state. So what does Mamdani, what do other people like in LAUSD want to do? They want to shut down charter schools. Right? They run a vote. They decide they should stay open or not. There's an audit every so often. And that gets the kids that close the charter schools, and that gets those kids sitting in public schools now. Right? You don't have a choice where your kids send your kid. You send them to the school we tell you to send them to. And if the school's underperforming, whatever. They can learn about communism, sexualization, BLM, what it means to be a good commie, don't stand for the pledge, all that good stuff that they teach in the public schools in our blue cities and our blue states. So Mamdani now claims, though, matching funds, overcharged rent, and foundation aid funding would be part of this audit as my administration determined how to manage the reality of co-located schools and legal entitlement. So again, he's going to try to pull these permits. They're going to try to get these kids out of these charter schools and, again, sitting in the New York City public school districts. That's what they're going to try to do. And again, that gives more money to these unions, because now you have possibly more teachers, but again, you have more money flowing through. It's a cash flow scheme. That's what it comes down to. It's a cash flow scheme. And then you have people like Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan saying that Mamdani represents a new generation of young leaders in the Democratic Party of which they are looking for. Yeah, that's what we're looking for, folks. Mamdani the commie. God forbid he wins. God forbid he wins. It'd be chaos if he won. It'd be absolute chaos in the streets of New York City if this guy won. Not only would you have no police department, I mean, the economy would crash, the schools would suck, or continue to suck, I should say. I mean, it would just be chaotic, folks. There's no way. There's no way. And I told you before, you cannot put in 3 other Democrats against this guy. You've got to have him going against one other candidate to take the majority of the vote. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with him. And that would be awful for New York City. And the rest of New York State, by the way. Folks, thanks for being here. I hope you have a blessed weekend. Thanks again. Share the show with some friends, and I'll catch you Monday on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless.